Hi. Since a lot of undergrads have confusions on where a variable gets allocated from or where dynamic allocation happens, I decided I'll cover the various memory sections of a program or code, or as I would call it, the anatomy of a program when in memory. So I'll discuss it using an example and say where each variable in the example is coming from. Before that, let's just get an idea of which are the memory sections, or at least the important memory sections. So, if this is the memory for your program, you have your text section, which will usually have your code. You will have your data section, which is again partitioned into two. I won't be going into the details. Your data section will usually have your global variables, your static variables. A point to note is the size is actually fixed. So when the program is loaded into the memory gets allocated at that point of time itself. And then you have your heap. So this is where all your dynamically allocated memory comes from. And finally you have your stack section or the stack frame. So this is where your local variables in a function or even the function arguments come from. So I've covered 4 sections of the memory: the text, which will have your code; the data section, which will have your global and static variables; the heap, which will have your dynamically allocated memory; and the stack, which will have your local variables and function arguments. So now let's just go through the example code and see where each variable comes from to get a more clearer picture. So my first variable is a string 0. It's a global variable. It's defined outside the scope of a function, and it also has a string associated with it. So even the string will need memory. Now, since it's a global variable and since it's only a pointer, this will come from your data section. So I'm marking it as D. Let's mark this as heap, and let's mark S, and let's mark this as stack. So the memory to store an address, which is your string 0, will come from the data section. Also, the memory to store this string also comes from the data section. Going ahead, buff0 is also a global variable and it's a pointer. So memory to store the pointer comes from your data section again. Now going into the main function, so all these variables will be your local variables. Therefore, they need to be coming from your stack. So your first variable is a pointer to char called string 1, and it has a string associated with it. Okay, the point to note here is this memory for this variable comes from the stack. So this is only a pointer, not the complete data. This data, whereas, gets stored in your data section. Going ahead, I have a static char star string 2. Because it is static, it is going to not come from your stack, it is going to come from your data section. This is a char star buff1. This will mimic your string 1. It is going to come from your stack. And then you can see 2 malloc functions here. So I am dynamically allocating 2 blocks of memory of size, capital size, and storing the addresses in buff0 and buff1. Note that buff1 is in stack and buff0 is in your data memory, but these memory chunks come from your heap. and the addresses get stored in your stack or in a data memory depending on buff0 or buff1. So I think I've covered this section. A point to note is your local variables, its scope is only within the function. So the moment I exit main, your local variables are void.